Okay, hi guys. So I'm going to talk about Vienna.go. First of all, I want to thank Rob for pointing me in the direction of this topic because I had no idea it even existed. So has anyone heard about Vienna.go? Has anyone used it? Has it worked?
Yes.
Really? Because I couldn't get it to work for my own project, just for smaller projects with fewer dependencies. So yeah.
I can show you later.
Okay. So I'm gonna start by talking about how this even came to be, or how Vienna.go came to be. So in 2009, when Go started, there was basically just a Go build command, which let you build a single package and created a makefile for it. So it was very simple, very basic, but it worked at the time. So 1 year later, we had the Go install command, which introduced the path conventions we have today, like with Go path and stuff like that, and allowed us to download packages from online sources like GitHub, Bitbucket, and so on. And it didn't take long until developers started like migrating their projects to this new structure, because it was like really needed for development with Go. And later on, we got like the command was just basically transformed into go get, so there wasn't much different in go get from go install, and it was part of the Go 1 release. But it still had no like concept of anything of versioning, basically. So you couldn't say this is version 1.0 of my package. So the community jumped in and basically developed multiple packages that could do this, like godep, glide, and dep, and there are probably hundreds more. So that kind of showed that the community really wanted to have some kind of versioning, vendoring, and stuff like that. So, but there was still like no official approach to this. So someone said we need to add package versioning to Go, like an official, once and for all solution for this problem. Why? Because the developers of Go thought that we need reproducible builds. Like if I build my package today and I build it again tomorrow, it has to be the exact same package if I don't change any version numbers or something like that, which is currently not always the case, because if I build a package today and like I update my dependencies tomorrow with go get, there's no guarantee I get the exact same version that I had yesterday. So it might break my my entire program if that happens. So that is something the Go developers thought important, and they wanted to allow us to explicitly pick versions for the packages we use. So one part of Vienna.go is that it uses or introduces semantic versioning, or semantic import versioning, which means that there's basically a semver formatted version, which is like 3 numbers, 2 dots, and a V. And every number basically also has a meaning. And yeah, so if we import the package, and we have a version 2 of a package, then the import path of that package also contains a v2. If it's a version 1 of the package, there is no v1 directory because the developers thought it isn't necessary. At least for now, it's that way. Maybe it will change because Vienna.go is still in development. And it's mostly because the Go developers encourage the developers of packages not to really introduce any breaking changes like a version 2 or a version 3, and they want to keep it that way, kind of. So they just decided that if a developer never releases a version 2, version 3, they don't have any subdirectory of that kind. Also, a new concept is that we have modules now, or maybe we will have modules, which are defined by a .mod file, where we enter basically the name of our module and the requirements, so the dependencies it has, where we can also pick a version. There are many different ways to really pick a version. You can just enter version number. You can pick it by a commit hash, basically, And this also, or they want modules and the mod file to basically replace what is like the Go path we have now. So your project can be anywhere. It doesn't have to be in your Go path anymore, or at least that's the goal for Vgo. And right now we're using repositories for the import of packages we're using, and the developers want it to be really simple for other developers to switch to the new module system, which is why you just have to tag your commits with a version number, and it automatically creates a module for Vgo to import, basically. So it detects that this is a version that you defined. So there's now a way for Vgo or Go itself to recognize that there is a module and that there is a version of that module, which was not the case or is not the case right now in the normal Go version. It has to use the Semver format, and that's what I already mentioned. The v2 directory is added if there is a version 2, and so on and so forth. And from a version 2 forwards, there's a mod file required. So if you have a version 1, you don't have to have a mod file, but with version 2, you have to have one because otherwise it doesn't work. This is an example from the proposal of Vgo. There's an official proposal now. And this is what the developers assume people are working like. Like they assume that you have major branches, basically. So you have a version 1 branch, a version 2 branch, and so on. And you can see at the top left that there's like the starting version, which was created when there was no Vgo. So it isn't a module, basically. But you can still import it with Vgo, so that works. So even modules or packages that were created before Vgo existed can still be imported. Then in version 1.0.1, we added a module definition with the mod file. And when we jump to the version 2 branch, we basically just changed the module definition to a v2. So that Vgo now knows that there's a v2 of that package. There is also a difference in how static file servers can serve modules, which is by using this structure of your URLs, where you can define these routes, and this basically shows the Vgo that there are modules on that server, or that the server serves modules to Vgo. So there's a list, which means that this is the list of all available versions for a package. There's a .info file, which contains metadata for the package, the .mod file itself, which we can download, and the zip file for the package. So the question is, of course, why don't they use dep? Because that was the initial plan, right? They wanted to use dep or include dep in Go. And the reason is mostly that dep was somewhat inspired by Ruby's package manager and Rust's cargo and so on. And they kept very strictly to that structure. And when the Go developers started getting into that whole thing, they somewhat decided that this wasn't perfect for Go. It wasn't what Go developers would want, or they thought it wouldn't be, because they don't want to break anything with Vgo. They want to let developers keep their workflows, and this wasn't really possible with the structure of dep. So yeah, they decided not to use dep and go with Vgo instead. So Vgo, as it is right now, because it's really subject to change in the future, is that it wants to keep the best parts of GoGet that it has right now, wants to introduce or add reproducible builds. It wants to adopt semantic versioning, so we really can define versions that make sense, kind of. eliminate vendoring, so they don't want to have any vendor directories anymore, like some vendoring packages use it. They want to deprecate GoPath. I think that's a good thing because it's unusual for a programming language to require you to have your projects in a single directory. So yeah, why not change that? And they also want to provide a smooth migration for the, from the currently existing managers like Deb, Glide, and so on, so that developers don't have to get used to an entirely new workflow and can just jump over to Vigo. So the current status is that there is a preview of Vigo available, so you can use it as a drop-in replacement for Go, as for the Go command basically. It can do everything the Go command can do, but it can, like you can see in the video, it can already import packages basically automatically, so you don't have to do anything apart from adding the dependencies to the mod file. So I tested this with a very small package in this example, which has just one dependency, but it worked. For bigger projects, I couldn't get it to work because there are still some mistakes in Vigo and many issues on GitHub. So it works most of the time. It requires Go 1.10 and upwards, so you have to upgrade if you want to or not. But as soon as it's included in Go, yeah, you will have to use it anyway at some point. Because the current plan is to introduce Vigo sort of into Go 1.11 and then go on and let the developers give feedback to it and sort of finalize it until Go 1.12. And then sort of end the support for GoPath and non-modules via GoGet by 1.13. So yeah, there are still many bigger problems that need solving, so it's going to take some time. It's not going to be a quick. It's not going to be a fast development of the new package management or module management, and there is currently no deprecation feature, so developers cannot say that this version of a package is deprecated. So that's just one of the features that's not included right now, but they're working on it, so yeah. Thanks.